Another thing that's overrated is completely starving yourself for fat loss. It's very unsustainable. And I want to break down why that happens. So a lot of people say, hey, Brock, they sign up to one of my programs. Hey, Brock, I'm trying to lose body fat. I've been on 1,500 calories and, I'm losing weight, but I don't know what to do next. Or they'll say, hey, Brock, I need to lose weight. What should my calories be? And then I'll give them, a 20% calorie deficit or a 500 calorie deficit. So they lose around, half a kilo or 1 pound of body weight per week. But they want to lose, extreme amounts very quickly. Hey, Brock, the calories that you gave me are too high, because they've seen all these body transformations online, or they've heard these like crazy stories where someone lost 8 kilos in 4 weeks, and I want that type of thing. Brock, why is this so slow? And the reason that I go for the slow and steady approach, which isn't really that slow, to be honest, losing a kilo a week or half a kilo a week, so 1 pound or 2 pounds per week, that's actually a really decent paced rate of fat loss. Because when you go too fast, often you can be depriving yourself. And when motivation is high, it's very easy to handle the levels of hunger. So that's why people can stick to these aggressive diets for 3 days, 7 days, up to 2 weeks. But after that, when motivation starts to dip a little bit, when you get really hungry because you're on these low calories and your training takes a dive because you don't have the energy to perform, that's when you give up and you just end up binging. You end up in a cycle of getting back to where you were and then some. So that's why it's unsustainable, because you're literally depriving yourself of too much at a rate, and you're fighting the urges of your body. Like if your body was like stupid, it would just let you continue starving yourself, and then you would just most probably die back in the day when we didn't have access to food. But your body is taught to try and preserve your life. So as you go in this extreme calorie deficit, your body sends hunger signals, because those hunger signals back in the day were sent to drive you to find food. But now we don't have to really find food. We can just buy food for most people in the world. Obviously, I don't want to be ignorant to people that don't live in such a fortunate world. But now we can just go and buy food. So that's ultimately what we do. Our hunger signals are just through the roof. We're so hungry, we can't handle it. And then we just, go on this rampage where we just eat takeaways. And, I've been there. That's why I'm talking about this from experience and, in so much detail, because I've been stuck in this cycle for ages. I've done it. I've been there. It sucks. I was there for years, actually. And I was a personal trainer while I was doing this. I was overcoming this while I was trying to coach people to overcome this. It was a very difficult time, and that's why I like to talk about this sort of stuff. And every time I tried to go very aggressive with my diet, I always bounced back, and I wouldn't progress at a slower rate. I'd actually regress. I would go backwards. And then when I started to think, okay, I don't need to eliminate the foods that I like. I don't need to go so aggressive and starve myself and dip my energy just because I think I thought that's how I lost fat. I can just be a bit more reserved. And when I did that, sure, the progress was a bit slower than when I starved myself, but at least it worked in the long term. Like I'd look back after a month and be like, oh, wow, I've actually kept this weight off and I've continued to progress. So it's more of like a delayed gratification vibe where you lose body fat just at a slower rate, but you eventually get there. Like what's better, getting there in 8 weeks or trying to get there in 8 days, binging, and then being in a worse spot in 2 weeks and doing that 4 times. And then you're in like a worse place than you started, as opposed to a better place just because you had a little bit more patience. And that's the sort of game that I like to play with myself and I like to play with my clients. And that's how we get really good results. And that's why I'm a bit anti-starving yourself in aggressive calorie deficits. Look, there is a time and a place and a person that can handle aggressive calorie deficits. And that person usually is someone carrying quite a decent amount of body fat. You can go quite aggressive because you have this stored energy, which is your body fat. So if you go a bit more aggressive, you may have slightly lower hunger signals because you have that stored energy in body fat. But if you're really lean, let's say you're 15% body fat or less, or even 10% body fat or less, which is pretty lean, 12% or less. If you're around this spot and you go quite aggressive, because you don't have those body fat stores or stored energy, and you just really have the diet and your muscles, if you go very aggressive, you can run the risk of potentially losing muscle mass. And that is no good, because that's what we work hard for in the gym. So look, aggressive, it does depend on the person. I'm not writing it off. You can go aggressive for calorie deficit and get good results, and then just like go to maintenance after if that works for you. But what I like to do is go for around 1% of your body weight per week. So I'm 90 kilos on average. So that would mean I would lose 900 grams per week. That seems to be the sweet spot in terms of not being too fast, that it's unsustainable, that I deprive myself of food and end up in this binge eating cycle. It's also not too slow that I lose motivation. And that's one thing that we have to be aware of when we are pursuing fat loss. Like, the slow and steady approach is cool, but if it's too slow, then you can just think, oh, this isn't working, and then just give up. Like if you lost 50 grams over the week and you're like, 50 grams, you can, go to the bathroom and lose 50 grams. Like, that's nothing. We need to move at a steady rate. And that's why that 1% of your body weight per week is a good rule. And too slow, you'll give up. Like, think of if you were doing it yourself. Like, imagine trying to save for a house and you're saving $1 a week. It's too slow. You're going to give up. Like, you need to save at least, $500 a week, or $1,000 a week, or $200 a week, like something significant that you can actually see the progress. Like if you can't physically see the progress and it's like 50 grams a week, what am I doing here? It's too slow. So there's the nuance in terms of starving yourself for fat loss. It's overrated. You don't need to do it. If you are carrying more body fat, you can do it. If you're lean, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd recommend the slow and steady approach. Okay, why do cheat meals suck? I'll tell you why cheat meals suck. Cheat meals are just like I feel like cheat meals are the fitness excuse for just going off your diet, and you just justify it with, you just stick a big Band-Aid over it and go, it was a cheat meal, man. It was a cheat meal. It's good for my, psychology. It's just an excuse for you to get off your over-restricted diet. Let's admit it. Let's be honest for a second. If you are starving yourself, coming back to the previous point, and depriving yourself of the foods that you love because you need to stick to this 1,200 calorie diet or 1,500 calorie diet, and then you get to the weekend, you're like, oh yes, it's Sunday, it's my cheat meal day. I'm going to just smash all this food guilt-free because it's a cheat meal. I'm going to eat 4,000, 5,000 calories on a Sunday, and it's going to be beautiful. And then Monday to Saturday, I'm going to continue back to the grind. All you're doing is kind of, if you're aware of it or not, you're just compensating for the amount of deprivation you're putting your body through. And this is why I'm pro flexible dieting, because it's how we sustain this diet. Okay, so so once a week, me and my wife, we get burgers. Sometimes it's twice a week. And we get burgers, right? And I have a big appetite. I have a large calorie intake, so I get 3 burgers. And we get chips, we get sweet potato chips, and we get normal fries as well, like potato chips. Sweet potato fries, yum. And that is at least 2,000 calories in one meal, at least. Because the burgers that I get are pretty high in calories. They're pretty high in fat. They have mayos, and they have meat that isn't the leanest, like Wagyu meat. And the calories are very high. And every time I post it on social media, people will DM me and put cheat meal ? And I'm like, no. This is just part of my diet. I've made it work today. I've made it work. I'm not cheating on my diet. My diet's not so restrictive that I'm like, oh, I need a burger, I'm going to die. I could have a burger every day if I wanted to. I even had 3 scoops of ice cream every day and lost over 5 kilos in 30 days. The 30-day ice cream challenge. I did it in 2019 with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. We did it together to prove that you can eat ice cream and lose body fat. Okay, and it's not that ice cream is the secret fat loss food that no one's eating. It's not that, I highly advocate high sugar intake. It was just to prove a point that you need to create a calorie deficit and you'll drop body fat. Okay, moving on. So I have them, but it's not a cheat meal because I account for them in my calories. So I have around 3,500 to 4,000 calories per day at the moment. And I've been there for a while. That is my maintenance / slight calorie surplus of 5%. Like I'm bouncing between the both because at the moment I'm in like a slow and steady build. And that 2,000 calories that I would have with the burgers is like half of my calorie intake, and I'm having it for dinner in one meal. So that leaves me like breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, whatever I eat throughout that day. If that is like 2,000 calories or 1,500 calories, I am literally sticking to my diet if I have these 3 burgers. This is the beauty of flexible dieting. I'm able to eat these burgers without like going, oh man, I feel terrible, I'm guilty, like I just smashed my calories. Because what a cheat meal is like you eat whatever you would every day, but then you go beyond it by like just like absolutely splurging and just going crazy with the calories. And I'm like, let's say it kind of is a cheat meal, but it's within my calories, so it's not a cheat meal, if that makes sense. Like I've stopped needing cheat meals. I've stopped the terminology of cheat meals. Like I don't actually require it in my life because my food choices that I have on a daily basis are actually really enjoyable, that I don't have to feel like I need to like bounce off my diet and go and cheat. Kind of like if you're in a boring marriage and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go, cheat on my wife or cheat on my husband because my day-to-day life is so boring that I'm just going to come back and slip into my normal relationship. Like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm depriving myself. I'm so bored. La, 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 la. Oh, and then the weekend comes again. Have a little fling. It's kind of like the same thing, which is, I guess, why they called it like a cheat meal, because you're cheating on your diet. But the thing is, you can just allow for these moments. And once you take the black and white thinking or dichotomous thinking of good foods and bad foods out of your vocabulary with your diet, then you can understand that you can have a slice of pizza during the day and it doesn't have to be a cheat meal. You can have a tiramisu pudding and that's not a cheat dessert. You can have pancakes for breakfast and still, make your calories, protein, fiber targets work for you throughout the day and still hit your calories and macros and still make progress. It's just incredible. Like, I think the most common compliment that I get with my coaching is people saying like, Brock, I did not understand I could still eat tasty food and lose body fat, and I've kept it off for ages because I feel like I'm not on a diet. And you can check out the podcasts, the previous ones that I've done with my clients before. I didn't pay them extra to say, hey, Brock, you like really transformed my life with the way that you taught me flexible dieting. It's just what happened. Like that was probably their biggest thing that they enjoyed about working with me and understanding is like, wow, I don't have to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli every day and just like eat oats with water and, skull down protein shakes straight after the gym. And it's like, they could have a chicken salad after training. They could have a sandwich, they could have a decent, lasagna meal for dinner and still hit their quota of calories, macros, and fiber. They could have some garlic bread. They could go to a wedding and have some cake. Like most people, when they get into fitness, they don't associate themselves with being able to do that and achieving a steady physique, which is why I'm so open about what I eat because, I have a decent physique and I'm not obsessive around the, no sugar, no this, no that type of diet. I'm not saying that everyone should go and just eat sugar and eat high fat foods and just like eat burgers and eat pizza and eat donuts. Like I'm definitely not trying to glorify that way of eating because that gets a lot of people in trouble. But if you have control and if you have boundaries within your, within your diet, you can enjoy those things on the occasion. Like I said, I have burgers maybe once or twice a week. That's not much. Like that's a couple of meals throughout the week, and I might eat 5 meals a day, 4 meals a day. So if I have 4 meals a day over the week, that's 28 meals. If only one or two of those meals are like burgers, like whoop-de-doo, that's such a small ratio. I like the 80-20 rule as well, like 20% delicious food, 80% nutritious food. So most of your diet is coming from, foods high in fiber, fruits and vegetables, lean cuts of meat, or maybe even not lean cuts of meat, but just like, meat, grains, if you eat grains, things like this, like really high quality foods. But 20% of your food could come from delicious things that you absolutely love that people go, oh, you're having a cheat meal, bro? Like 20% of your diet coming up from that, like, man, that's cool. If you want to have a shot of tequila on Saturday, go ahead. If you want to have a burger like I do, or 3, go ahead. Just make it work. Like, we're in it for the long haul. That's what you have to understand. We're not out here trying to, diet for 8 weeks, get lean, take some photos, and then just like get fat. Like, no, we're trying to like improve our health step by step by step and continue to get better as we go through this fitness thing. It's not a fad. It needs to become a lifestyle, because or else you're like, oh yeah, I used to do fitness. Yeah, that used to be me. But I don't want you to fall into that category. I want fitness to be a part of your life and make it work.